Hi, welcome to our first episode of the Leo Squad. My name is Tess, and with me, my co-host.
Mckenzie Bear.
In this episode, we'll be talking about what law enforcement is and the background of law enforcement. But before we do that, you probably want to know more about it. So, I'm a senior in high school. I've always loved law enforcement. I just wanted to educate people more on it. We have just grown so much of what has happened in the past years of law enforcement, and I just want to know more and educate people more. And I hope that this podcast will help. Mckenzie?
So I'm a junior in high school. I have a lot of family on my dad's side who are cops, sheriff's deputies, everybody in law enforcement, and I've always been interested in what law enforcement does and is, and I definitely back them up whenever they need.
All right, the first section we'll go over is what law enforcement is. So, law enforcement is anything that is like a fire department, ambulance, police, anything that helps people when they need it. Kenzie, you want to go in more detail with that?
Yeah, so when she was talking about first responders with police, fire, EMS, and everybody. But law enforcement directly are police officers, sheriff's deputies, state patrol agents, bounty hunters, which we'll get into another episode. But anyone that protects and serves law, and they're what's the word? Government officials that are sworn in to protect the citizens of wherever they are.
Yeah, so there's many different types of law enforcement. Like there's the sheriff, there's the police, and then there's like bounty hunters, and there's also like
State patrol
and school resource officers, which we have one at our school. They help when the school is going to go on a lockdown. The school resource officer is in charge, and they will call back for backup if they need it. Kenzie, you want to explain more on what sheriffs do and stuff?
So the sheriff's department's job is to run a county jurisdiction. Not only the sheriff's department, a local law enforcement, they also run the county jails. They also run the county courthouses. They may also run the coroner's department or the medical examiner's corner, whatever that is. They will run the government centers. They have a bigger job than police and state patrol in a way, because they run the bigger facilities in the county.
Yeah, as she is saying, that when you get pulled over, say you get pulled over by a cop will pull you over because if you were speeding or something. And then if you get pulled over by a sheriff, they're more hardcore, would you say? Or
yeah, they're more tougher, and they will give you a ticket more than a local law enforcement police officer would.
Now let's go more into detail with the school resource officer. So at our school, we have a resource officer who has been there for 2 years, three or 2 years.
Yeah.
She's also a police officer that does night shifts. She will endure a lockdown if she thinks the school is in danger. You could also just go to her if you have a problem, or if you see something bad going on in school that you know you're not supposed to do. She'll help you through a lot of problems problems, or like if somebody's bullying you, she'll like help you do that. Do you want to explain a little bit more like how she could help people?
Yeah. So she was talking about what the duties are of a resource officer, but not only do they work in the schools, but they are also sworn in police officers with the department that they work for. And their job is to protect the school district or the school that they work at, the teachers, the staff, the students, everybody else, to make sure everything runs smooth. And yes, they will do lockdowns. They'll do we have something called Alice. Well, we can get to that in another video, but they do like special drills with us. And like she was saying, that we can go to them for any problem that we have. They're like a counselor.
Yeah. Let's go into detail what bounty hunters are. So a bounty hunter is, Mckenzie, you wanna take that away?
Yes. So a bounty hunter, this is gonna may shock some of you, but a bounty hunter gets paid for capturing people that are out on bond. So basically, when you get arrested and you don't have enough money to get out of jail, you can call a bail bondsman. Their job will to help get you out of jail. But once you get out of jail, you have to follow specific rules, and if necessary, a court date will be issued for you. So basically, let's say you don't follow the rules while you're on bond, you don't show up to court, that is when a bounty hunter, also known as a fugitive recovery agent, comes in to take you back to jail because you're a threat to their bond and their company, and they'll take you back into custody.
Yeah. There's also a famous YouTube channel that, if you want to learn more on like what they do, about a bail bond does, you can go check that out. Some other things that you should know, what are like, if you've ever seen like the people in court, like the police, the people that are in court that that take the inmates to court.
Mm-hmm.
Kenzie, you want to tell them like?
Yeah, so this is with the sheriff's department. So in court, they're called court security officers, and their job is to keep the peace in the courtroom, to make sure nothing happens in the court, make sure no guns or anything, although people are pre-searched before they walk into that courtroom. And so in the jail, obviously there's got to be a way for them to get to court without, them walking without handcuffs and shackles. There has to be a whole routine, whole process. So basically, a court transport officer will wake an inmate up at a certain time, or when their court date is, maybe 3 hours ahead of their court date, handcuff them, shackle them, search them, everything like that. And then they'll be put in a van that says marked prisoner transport, and they're going to be taken down to the courthouse. That's one way. Another way is a lot of the newer jails and prisons have a tunnel underneath them that can go right from the jail to the courthouse without having to even leave the secured building. These guys are extremely cautious of who they're taking to court and who they're dealing with, and they have a pretty big job in keeping people safe in the courthouse.
So people might have questions on, well, what if the court is far away from the prison? It's really not. It's normally like right next to the prison, so that's why they have the underground tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the prisoners can't like try to escape if they need to walk outside.
Yeah, exactly.
What else do you think that they should know, Mckenzie?
We can talk about specialty units.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So there's a lot of different units out there within police, sheriff's departments, and state patrol. One example is patrol. So normal patrol, they're deputies not just deputies, but officers. They respond to your 911 calls. They do traffic stops. They do welfare checks. They do all these different things in patrol to keep the community safe, okay? They usually drive marked squad cars or patrol cars, and then their job is just to answer all your 911 calls. Do you want to get into the K9 unit, Tess?
Yeah. So in our city, we have a officer who actually has a K9, and they've actually came to our school when we've had a lockdown. The K9s are normally German Shepherds, but they can be any kind of dog, but they're normally German Shepherds because they are so high
versatile.
Versatile.
Mm-hmm.
So the canines can sniff drugs. That's like if they brought them into a school, they would do a drug search. Like they would sniff the lockers, and normally 2 or 3 canine dogs would come to a school just so it'd be more spread out, so because they need to sniff all the lockers. So we have one in our area. We have another one probably in a different area closest to us, and then we probably have a third one that comes from a different area. So they all 3 come, and then their jobs are to try to keep people safe, and you cannot pet them because they have a job to do, and they will bark or lie down or whatever their owner tells them to do, or that's however they're trained. So when say a canine comes into a school and it sniffs some drugs, the officer that's in charge of the canine, however it's trained, will tell it to either lie down or bark. Most times they'll probably lie down just because they don't want other people to hear the dog barking, but so then other people don't get scared. Some other things canines can do is try to find a missing person. They could sniff out a body in a fire or something. They could do bomb searches, but we don't really have bombs in our schools though. But like if they do, they would probably bring one in. So that's like a canine unit. We have one at our police station where we live. So, and the dog stays home. This dog the officer has the dog. It is the officer's dog, and they're just really cool because they're just like they're different from other dogs because they're wanting to protect people and try to at least.
Yeah, and with what she was saying, so they have several jobs. They are substance searchers, so narcotics, like drugs, whatever. There's dogs that can detect dead people or dead bodies. There are another big part of the canines is it's called bite or whatever. It's where they bite the individuals who are running from the officers. So basically, let me give you a little scenario here. So if an officer is on a traffic stop the officer's a canine unit, let's say, right? The officer and the suspect flees out. Let's say the passenger flees out of the car with the driver's in the car complying. Okay, the officer has a key fob on his duty belt or her duty belt, and they can press a button, and the passenger side back door of the squad car will open up, and the dog will come flying out and attack that subject to back up the officer, and the officer then can go deal with the other subject. And the dog is trained to bite the person, hold that person down until another deputy or officer can get there to put the cuffs on and take them into custody.
Yeah. We can come back to like other parts of the law enforcement stuff. So let's start on our second topic that we were going to do today, which would then. What was our second topic?
Hang on, sorry. law background.
So the background, which we so obviously it's important to like follow the rules, know what the laws are, you should know your Miranda rights and all that stuff. But if you do get in trouble with the law, you could end up going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be not good.
So law, not only does law work with law enforcement, obviously, but it goes into the courts, it goes into district attorneys, it goes into the government. There's a lot of different people involved in the criminal justice system within law enforcement. So basically, what she was saying with people should know the laws in their state. Okay, that's a big thing. They should know what drugs are legal and what drugs are legal in their state. They should know different charges and what type. So we have in our state we have I actually learned this the other day from our school resource officer. We have petty theft or petty misdemeanor. We have misdemeanor. We have gross misdemeanor, and we have felony. Felony is the biggest one. That's a more severe charge, and it's just each state's different.
Yeah. So obviously going back into like the schools and stuff. So resource officers are also just they can be any kind of anybody like any officer but I think they have to have certain training to be a resource officer. It just can't be a random resource, or it can't just be a random officer from the station. Because they have to know different things about the schools or whatever. Like, should we talk about like how they transport like an inmate from a different jail?
Sure can. Okay, so
okay.
I hope most of you know that jail and prison are two very different things in their own ways. A jail, you can only hold up an inmate up to 1.5 years in a jail. After 1.5 years, that inmate either has to be released or taken to a more in-depth facility, like a prison or a penitentiary. And the way they'll transport people is they'll put them on a bus or a van, secured in handcuffs, leg shackles, whatever it is, all these chains and cuffs. They'll put them on a bus for as long as they'll need to, and they'll take them to the facility with their property that they came in with, and their whole process starts over again at the new facility. But what's interesting about this is they do not stop. Let's say a prisoner needs to go to the bathroom. They do not stop for that type of stuff, okay? They will just keep going, and the inmate will do whatever they need to do. But they are not allowed to like remove the inmate off the bus or whatever. So it's just interesting how they do it.
Yeah, and getting in trouble with the law is very, very bad. Mm-hmm. So this is why we need to educate people on why the law can be either two things. It can be good or it can be bad. You want to choose the good side, not the bad side, because it depends on what you get charged with. That can lead you up to like life in prison, and that's not good. So to close out this episode, should we just do a recap on what we talked about today?
Sure can.
All right. So we talked about a lot of things today. So the first thing we're going to recap is what a sheriff is, what they do. Kenzie?
So like I said, there's 3 different branches in 3 different areas. So we have the city police, the county sheriff, and the state patrol. Police have a more city job. County works within different cities within a county, and state patrol has jurisdiction all over the state. Now, it's different from a sheriff and a police officer. Sheriff has a more area to roam and more area to do stuff. They run the jails, they run the courthouse, they run the coroner's office, they run all these other areas, and they just have a more of a responsibility in the area.
All right. The next thing you guys learned was what a bounty hunter is. Kenzie?
So a bounty hunter is if you miss court, you're doing something wrong while you're on bond, a big guy or a couple people in big crazy uniforms will come and take you away in handcuffs and take you back to jail, and they'll charge you with failure to appear to court or bad behavior on bond.
And what was a school resource officer again?
A school resource officer is a licensed, sworn-in patrol officer or police officer within the building of a school building to protect the students and staff, and they will do lockdowns, they will do building searches. Their job is just protect the students and staff of a high school or middle school or even elementary school.
Then we learned about what a canine unit is. A canine unit is the unit that has the dog, and they can do all the different drug tests, drug searches, dead body searches, and all these different types of things. They go into schools when a lockdown is happening, search lockers. But they can also do other things, they have incredible smell, and that's what they are trained to do, is to smell different things, like for a missing person, or it's a wide range of them, of what they can do. And another thing we talked about was the security unit, or how to transport inmates.
Which we just covered, so hope you understood what we were talking about.
Yeah, but just recap them on what a transfer is, or.
Yep. So, transport unit transports inmates to and from courtrooms, to and from courthouses, from the jail. They can also transport people or the inmates from jail to prison, or prison to jail, or federal prison, or whatever. They just have they get to drive a lot.
Yeah, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about and review about is the court, and how an inmate gets from court or jail to court, and what the people that have the inmates are called. Kenzie, want to explain or review what that was?
Yeah, so basically an inmate isn't told about their court date unless maybe they know ahead of time. But when they have something called a court hearing, and then they have their sentencing hearing and whatever. When it's time for no matter what, when they're in the jail and they're going to the courthouse, they are always restrained in restraints, handcuffs, leg shackles, belly chains, everything possible that they can get their hands on a restrained individual. That's for their safety and the court safety. So an inmate either has two options, depending if the jail is old or newer. If it's older, they will use a vehicle. If it's newer, they will use more likely a tunnel system to get them to and from the courthouse and the jail.
Yeah. That's pretty much what we had for our first episode. So, and remember to subscribe to our podcast, and we hope to see you or have you listen to our next podcast. Thanks for listening to Mckenzie. Thanks for listening to
The Leo Squad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm Mackenzie Bear, and that is Tess.